We've had some really great talks today about innovation, and for me it's been really a journey in looking at what does an innovator really look like. You know, we all have these mental models in mind. If I would ask you what an innovator looks like, many of you would probably imagine somebody like Thomas Edison, who has more than 1,000 patents to his name and gave us the telephone and the light bulb. Some of us might even think of somebody like Steve Jobs with his iconic black turtleneck and helped us reimagine what products are and also how we might reimagine them in our lives. But we could also look at somebody like Sir Richard Branson, who's reimagining how we might look at industries in terms of aviation and entertainment and music. It's really interesting then, could we pick an innovator out of a crowd? This is a really interesting question, one that's been on my mind for a while. What does an innovator look like? With the previous examples, we might think it belongs to a certain age, a certain gender, a certain socioeconomic background. But what I found is it's less about the who and more about the what. What are they passionate about? What are they willing to take a small idea and make it big for? And this is really an interesting question. I was actually reminded of this as I was traveling the Middle East some years ago, talking to a wide range of audiences, all walks of life, different ages, genders, academia, public service, different companies. And I was just fascinated by the entrepreneurs and innovation and creativity I was running across, all wanting to do something for their country, do something really unique for their generation. But after one of these talks, I had a government official come up to me and say, we need people like you to come to our country and help us innovate, because we don't know how. And I was actually floored by that statement. I thought, why can't he see what I see? Why can't he see this brilliant innovations and creativity in his own country? And he probably could if he widened the aperture of what that might look like. So today I want to take you on a journey to widen your aperture and make you look differently about potential innovators and what they might look like. Edison said the greatest invention is in the mind of a child. And research bears this out. By the age of 4, children are already asking why. Why, mommy, why, right? We all hear this. They're curious about their environment. They want to know things, and they're not burdened by their past. They're not burdened by what it should be. They're very curious. But by the age of 6.5, they started to change. They started to interpret the education system as valuing more of the answers more than the questions. And they stopped asking questions. But we have some great examples to show that children can be great innovators too. Cassandra Lin, she's 12 years old. She's up in Massachusetts. And what she found was, when reading the local newspaper, that there was a lot of families in her hometown that didn't have enough heating oil during the wintertime to actually heat their homes and keep themselves warm. And it really dismayed her. You know, being a child, you would think she had nothing to offer. But what she did is she banded together with her fellow 7th graders, and she went out to the community. And she started looking at different businesses and saying, could we take that excess cooking oil, the used cooking oil and grease, and actually turn that into some biofuels that might be an alternative energy source for this community? So she did just that, and she created a project called TGIF, Turn Grease into Fuel. I love that name. Very creative, right? But what she showed is that age doesn't matter. For her, it was all about a problem. It was all about a passion. It was all about what could I do to actually look at this problem differently? This is Peyton Robertson. He actually had a very unique story as well. In 2005, he actually waited out a hurricane in his family's closet with his mom and dad. And it really left a lasting impression upon him. Because he thought, after that event, what could I do to actually reimagine how we might look at crisis response? And so he picked something very simple, something very ordinary. He picked a sandbag. He said, what could we do that's better than what happens today? Sandbags are very heavy. They're not very reusable. They take a long time to fill. And frankly, they don't hold back water very well. He invented something brand new, the Sandless Operational Sandbag, the SOS. Kids have great acronyms here, right? For this invention, he won the 2013 Young America's Scientist Award. I think this is fabulous, the way he actually put that together. And the fact that it doesn't use sand, it uses a mix of salt and harmless chemicals, weighs the tenth of a weight of a normal sandbag and can be reused in any crisis. Teenagers can't vote, they can't drink, they all have curfews they think is entirely unreasonable. What do they have to offer? They haven't even finished their education. But frankly, even teenagers now are looking at some of the world's most pressing problems, like food safety, like cancer, and being able to contribute in ways that you wouldn't imagine there as well. This is Jack. This is Jack Andraka. This is the face of innovation. This is what joy looks like right here. This is actually him running up to the stage in 2012, accepting the Intel Science and Engineering Grand Prize for his work in reimagining how we might look at pancreatic cancer. This joy actually came from a really heart-rending event for him and his family, where a very close friend actually succumbed to that disease. And he wondered, and he asked his dad, why does it take so long to detect something like this, and why is it so expensive? And his dad said, go find out. And so he went to the internet. He actually found all the research he needed to actually come up with a new way to detect pancreatic cancer, earlier and cheaper. And he actually, just like every entrepreneur, ran into the headwinds of people wanting to accept his research. He was turned down 199 times for a lab space to go prove this out. But he only needed one yes, and he got that one yes, and he actually made this solution that he was able. That actually, it's very encouraging now for the cancer community to be able to look at, maybe we can do this differently. He still innovates today. He innovates in his basement, in his homemade lab, and he only has one rule: don't burn the house down. This is Kavita Shukla, just like Jack, is 17 years old. She had a life-altering experience, slightly differently, but just as impactful. She was on a family trip down to India, and she was with her grandmother, and she drank the local tap water. Now, I can tell you from personal experience, this is not a good idea, and I'm a smarter man for it. She got sick too, and her grandmother actually nursed her to health using just a series of local herbs and spices that were indigenous to the area. This fascinated her, not only for the medicinal properties, but when she came back, she said, why? Why do they work? Why wasn't it just ordinary medicine that I had? If it was just herbs, what was the effect? And what she found for the particular herbs that her grandmother had given her was it had antifungal and antibacterial properties. So she didn't just stop at saying, this is wonderful insight that I found for personal health. She had actually been thinking about a different problem. And this is one of food. Every year, some estimates are that nearly 50% of the world's food supply goes to waste because of spoilage. And she wondered, if antibacterial, antifungal properties were in these herbs, what could we do to help the food supply? Her solution, she embedded those herbs into paper. She calls it fresh paper. It's now on sale throughout the US and now is being used throughout the world to see if we can actually make food and produce last longer. I think that's a wonderful response from a very personal event for her. But do you have to live in a first world country? Do you have to live in some place like Silicon Valley to actually be an innovator? Our experience in our minds and maybe our mental models would say yes. Examples would say not so fast. You know, if necessity is the mother of invention, we find this all over the world. Meet Sue Kahumbu. So as far away as from Silicon Valley as you can get, in Kenya, she's now being an innovator. She knew that information helps farmers in ways that you couldn't otherwise understand. And she knew that with the growing proliferation of mobile devices, she could help a constituency that maybe needed more information. So what she did, she created an app for cows, of all things. It's called iCow. And it actually helps farmers on their iPhone actually know when the optimal breeding cycles are for their herds or the optimal vaccination cycles are for their herds. But it's not just an app, it's a platform. We can now share news locally with other farmers. Maybe there's disease outbreaks and this app can help get a local response for that. For her, it was not just about the farmers themselves, it was actually helping their lives and giving them something in their pockets, something that they already knew and had, and maybe having that help their particular situation. And this is Dr. Anil Gupta. What he says in India, in the villages in India, is that there's a lot of nameless, faceless people who have great inventions and great ideas that never get a voice. He wants to give them what he calls inclusive innovation, to arm them with the ability to share those ideas with others. Others like academia, government, but even more so, others around them. And he created the Honeybee Network. This allows those nameless, faceless innovators of rural villages in India to share really unique and sometimes very basic innovation that actually helps a lot of people. One example of this was a farmer who had an idea that, as we're using the human exertion and force to pump water for ourselves, could we use the same force and exertion and energy to actually pump water for animals too? And the pump was redesigned because of that. Now it's being proliferated throughout rural India. But at what age does innovation slow down or stop? We would often think that as we get to our sunset years, we just retire, we play golf, we do something else, right? We've done our part. But there's a lot of innovators. In the US, there's over 100 million of us that are 50 years or older, and we expect that to climb rapidly in the next decade. We expect that those folks will become innovators too, as they bring their life lessons to social innovation in new ways we hadn't imagined. Meet Elizabeth Huttinger. Over lunch one day with a colleague as an international health expert, she found that in Africa, millions of people are infected with a debilitating disease because of a small parasite that lives in a snail in the rivers that they frequent. And the reason it is proliferating is because their natural predator, the African tiger prawn, has been taken out of that environment due to man-made development. So here she said, I can do something about this. And now she has created Project Crevette, which is all about reintroducing the African tiger prawn back into its natural environment. For her, it wasn't just about disease and disease outbreaks. She saw an opportunity to actually do something with biodiversity too. And this is BP Agrawal. For him, his lifelong lessons in engineering really provided an opportunity as he went back to his native India. And he saw a very basic problem, one where people are gathering the sustenance of life, water. Some women will spend all day gathering water from wells as deep as 400 feet deep. And for him, he saw that there was a way to marry the old and the new. Gathering water has been around for centuries. What he wanted to do is catch it from the rain to the rooftop. And he was able to use his engineering expertise to help create a series of pipes and gutters and cisterns to actually capture the water during those seasons, during the monsoon seasons when it's plentiful, and have it available when it's not. It changed the lives of millions of people in rural India. So what does an innovator actually look like? What we found is it isn't an age-based type of indicator. It doesn't rely on a particular gender. It has no socioeconomic bent to it. It relies more on the who and the what. What are you passionate about? And frankly, what would you be willing to innovate for? Be an innovator. Thank you very much.